Hello and welcome to the God's Honest Truth. I'm your host, Sam Milken, and today we will be doing two chapters instead of one. But the first one is a little short. First of all, realize I've been calling Abram Abraham, even though he's not Abraham just yet. Called him Abraham quite a lot in the last chapter when he was going to Egypt. And I do apologize if that caused any confusion if you were following along. Um, I'm just so used to him being called Abraham that I guess my brain just, well, instead of saying Abraham, it went Abraham. So I do apologize if I caused any confusion if you were following along. With that being said, let's get started. Before I did that, just a quick recap. They did go to Egypt. He tricked the Pharaoh by saying his wife is his sister. God plagued the land for that, and he's like, "What have you done? Take your wife and go." And so now they're now leaving Egypt because of that. So just a quick reminder of where we are. Anyways, so they left Egypt and traveled north into Negev. Abraham and his wife and Lot and all that they owned. But Abraham was very rich in livestock, silver, and gold. Then they continued traveling by stages toward Bethel, to the place between Bethel and Ai, where they had camped before. This was the place where Abraham had built the altar, and there he again worshipped the Lord. Lot, who was traveling with Abraham, was very wealthy with sheep, cattle, and many tents. But the land could not support both Abraham and Lot and all their flocks and herds, living so close together. There were too many animals for the available pasture land. So an argument broke out between the herdsmen of Abraham and Lot. At the time, criminals and prisoners were also living in the land. Okay, so we can see here that after they got taken out of Egypt, they went in the area between Bethel and Ai, and they got this land. And Abraham was switched from one way, Lot was switched to another, but there's not enough room, so now they're just arguing about it. Make sense so far? Okay. Moving on. Then Abraham talked it over with Lot. This arguing between us herdsmen has got to stop, he said. After all, we are close relatives. I'll tell you what we'll do. Take your choice of any section of land you want, and we will separate. If you want the area over there, then I'll stay here. If you want to stay in this area, then I'll move on to another place. Isn't that nice? But this just goes to say that, even way back then, family had arguments. But thankfully, Abraham was reasonable and was able to present a very reasonable solution to the problem. Moving on, Lot took a long look at the fertile plains of the Jordan Valley in the direction of Zoar. The whole area was well watered everywhere, like the garden of the Lord or the beautiful land of Egypt. This was before the Lord had destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah. Lot chose this land for himself, the Jordan Valley to the east of them. He went there with his flocks and servants and parted company with his uncle Abram. But while Abram stayed in the land of Canaan, Lot moved his tent to a place near Sodom. along the cities of the plain. The people of this area were unusually wicked and sinned greatly against the Lord. Interesting. Okay, so it looks like Lot chose to go to an area where people were very wicked and sinned quite greatly against the Lord. And that's an interesting decision. We're going to see how that plays out here in a bit. But for now, let's move on. After Lot was gone, the Lord said to Abraham, look as far as you can see in every direction. I am going to give all this land to you and your offspring as a permanent possession. And I'm going to give you so many descendants like dust, they cannot be counted. Take a walk in every direction and explore the new possessions I am giving you. Then Abram moved his camp to the oak grove owned by Mamre, which is set at Hebron. There he built an altar to the Lord. Okay, so the last part of that chapter, God was saying, hey, I'm giving this all to you and all your offsprings. Make sure you use it well. And Abraham responded by putting up yet another altar for the Lord. Alright, so that's chapter 13. Normally I would end it there, but we're not. We're going to move right on to chapter 14. Alright, so let's go. About the time war broke out in the region, King Abram of Babylonia, King Asher of Elasar, King Codal of Elam, and King Tidal of Goliam fought against King Bera of Sodom, King Bisa of Gomorrah, King Sibit of Admah, King Sembor of Sibium, and the king of Bela, now called Zor. Wow, that sounds like a miniature World War, doesn't it? A whole bunch of kingdoms fighting each other there. Well, hold on. King of Sodom, Gomorrah, Adam, Zebraham, and Bela formed an alliance and mobilized their armies in Sedum Valley, that is, Valley of the Dead Sea. For 12 years they had all been subject to King Chedorlaomer, but now in the 13th year they rebelled. Okay, so we got an alliance going on here, and it looks like there's also a rebellion going on. 1 year later, Chedorlaomer and his allies arrived. They conquered the Raphaites and Asurathkarim, the Zuthites and Ham, the Amorites in the plain of Kithraim, and the Hosites in Mount Seir as far as El-Paran at the edge of the wilderness. Then they swung around to En-Mishpat, now called Kadesh, and destroyed the Amalekites and also the Amorites living in Hazazon Tamar. So we can see here the rebellion didn't go so well. And he got rid of the Ashmanites and the Amorites. So, but now the army of the kings of Sodom, Gomorrah, Adam, Sebrium, and Bela, now called Zor, prepared to battle in the valley of the against King Codal of Aram and the kings of Goram, Babylonia, and Ashur, 4 kings against 5. And as it happened, the valley was filled with tar pits. And as the army of the kings of Sodom and Goram fled, some slipped into the tar pits, while the rest escaped into the mountains. The victorious invaders then plundered Sodom and Gomorrah and began the long journey home, taking all the wealth and food with them. They also captured Lot, Abraham's nephew who lived in Sodom, and took everything he owned. Uh-oh. Okay, so it looks like King Goros and his allies, they wiping out an army. They used tar pits, and now it looks like they got Lot and everything he had too. So, oof. Let's see what happens next. One of the men who escaped came and told Abram and the Hebrew, who were camped at the oak grove belonging to Mamre the Amorite, Eshcol and Anna were Abraham's allies. When Abraham learned that Lot had been captured, he called together the men born into the household, 318 of them in all. He chased after the Canaanite army until he caught up with them in Dan. There he divided his men and attacked during the night from several directions. Canaanite army fled, but Abraham chased them to Hobah north of Damascus. Abram and his allies recovered everything, the goods that had been taken, Abraham's nephew Lot and his possessions, and all the women and other captives. Wow. Crazy, huh? 318 men against a small army. And because of his tactical moves, caused the army to fled. And we're going to see something similar like this happening later on, but that's, whew, that's wild. Alright, we're moving on. As Abraham returned from his victory over Kedar and his allies, the king of Sodom came out to meet him in the valley of Seves, that is the king's valley. Then Melchizedek, the king of Salem, the priest of God Most High, brought his bread and wine. Melchizedek blessed Abraham with this blessing. Blessed be Abraham by God Most High, creator of heaven and earth, and blessed be God Most High, who will help you conquer your enemies. Okay, so we can see here that Melva is giving the credit to God. God helped Abraham give him the strength he needed to overcome such a big army. And Abraham probably would agree with him because he's just that kind of guy. Then Abraham gave Melech a tenth of all the goods he recovered. King himself told him, "Give back my people who were captured, but you may keep yourself all the goods you have recovered." Abraham replied, "I have solemnly promised the Lord God Most High, creator of heaven and earth, that I will not take so much as a single thread or sandal thong from you. Otherwise you might say, I am the one who made Abram rich. All I accept is that these young men of mine have already eaten, but give a share of the goods to my allies, Daniel, Eshcol, and Mamre." Alright, and there you have it. That's the story of how Abraham and Lot separated, and the story of the Great War, between Capriacite and Solomon, of how Lot got captured, and how Abram and his small group, with God's power behind them, were able to save some mouth and rescue his son. And howdy, was that a wild story? But a great one nonetheless. Alright, so next time we'll go into chapter 15, see what that's about. But in the meantime, I'm Sam Milligan. This has been the God's Honest Truth. Take care, everybody. Bye.